Okay, then today, thank you for inviting me, Livia, and this is Slava, and hi everybody. The Lady of Linshui, then in Ming and Qing novels. Today, I shall present the Lady of Linshui in the novel Linshui Pingyao, a novel that has just been translated by Christine Ingrid Freiklund and annotated and introduced by Mark Edward Lewis and myself, and that comes after the monography that I published on that subject and that cult in 2008. The Lady of Linshui pacifies demons, retells the life, great deeds, and divinization of Chen Jinggu, Lady of Linshui, one of the major goddesses still venerated in Fujian, Taiwan, and other places in Southeast Asia to which the cult has immigrated. She is worshipped at the center of the triad of the three ladies as a protector goddess of women during pregnancy and childbirth, and of children passing through the major diseases which mark the road to adulthood. Her story can be read as a dramatic narrative, as a rich source of religious history, and as meditation on the position of women in the society of late imperial China. The Linshui Pingyao is classified as an old vernacular novel. There is no mention of the author's name, and in fact, it is not a novel in the conventional sense of an artfully composed long prose narrative. Rather, it compiles the mythic episodes that were created over a substantial period of time in the process of establishing and developing her cult and of elaborating the rituals of the Mount Lu sect. The stories compiled in this manner usually came from hagiographic texts containing liturgy and homilies, the traditions of performers who told stories of the divinities, and plays dramatizing the deities' myths suitable for performance during their festivals. It is likely that oral versions of the legend circulated widely until the episodes were finally written down and printed in the form first of manuscripts and lithographies, and then published as extended narratives. Judging from references to names of political units and titles, several of which do not occur until the beginning of the Qing dynasty, the currently available editions appear to date in their definitive versions to the 17th century. The story takes place at the time of the kingdom of Ming, blending the account of Chen Jinggu, whom other sources say was born in 766, with the legendary history of this state. The episodes trace her miraculous birth from a drop of blood of the goddess Guanyin, her divinely assisted flight from her home to avoid marriage, her education in Taoist arts at Mount Lu, her departure from the mountain after refusing to learn the arts associated with childbirth, her forced marriage, her career pacifying the demons of Ming, in the process of which she created a cultic community of women followers, her participation in the conflicts of the kingdom, her death in the course of removing a fetus, which offers a mythic form of an abortion in order to perform a ritual for rain to benefit the country, and finally, her consequent divinization as the Lady of Linshui. Within the profusion of events hinted above, I shall present only two main themes today: the parallel lives of Chen Jinggu and the White Snake, and the gathering of a community of sworn sisters as a reflection on the feminine, maternity, and childhood. As Franz Boas said, it seems that mythological universes are meant to be pulverized as soon as they are formed, so that new universes are born from their debris. Their substance, their intrinsic value is in the story they tell. Then we will see today which particular story makes up the aggregate Linshui Pingyao, knowing that there are other novels conveying different variants of the story. The text achieves an underlying structure by presenting Chen Jinggu as simultaneously the alter ego and arch-rival of the white snake demon. It recounts their combat from their twin births as emanation of the body of Guanyin, a drop of blood and a strand of white hair, up to their reunion in the death and divinization of Chen Jinggu, when the white snake becomes both her mount and the demon guardian of her temple. The rivalry of Chen Jinggu and the white snake takes the form of two complementary lives converging at the pivotal moments that define the classical career of a woman in traditional Chinese society: birth, marriage, childbirth, and death. At each moment of crisis, the two figures are opposed as embodiments of two fundamental roles of women, the wife and mother versus the passionate lover. But they were both also imperfect versions of their roles. The nature of their birth dictated that one became an unwilling wife and mother, while the other became a creature of constant, unfulfilled passions. You can see the combat of Chen Jinggu and the white snake here in the Linshui Pingyang. When Chen Jinggu had reached the critical age of 24 and become pregnant, the ritual pollution of her pregnancy meant that she could not practice ritual arts anymore. However, a great drought afflicted Ming. Then she agreed to disregard the warnings of her master in order to save the kingdom, thus putting her own life and that of her fetus at risk by carrying out a ritual dance on the Big Dipper stars to bring rain. She removed the fetus at her mother's house, which she made invisible under a lake of lotuses. However, the disguise was penetrated by the white snake's servant, who stole the fetus and fed it to his mistress. Thus, the fetus passed from Chen Jinggu's body into that of the white snake, a perversion of pregnancy and the birth process in which the fetus died. You can see Chen Jinggu dancing for the rain in a ritual painting. Temporarily preserved by her master, Chen Jinggu climbed astride the snake and used her own magic to bring them both to Linshui Palace, where they died reunited in this chimerical form. After her death, Chen Jinggu returned in spirit to Mount Lu to finally learn from her master the ritual arts of childbirth that she had disdained, and whose lack was linked to her bloody death. She thus assumed a protective role as goddess with the head of the white snake enclosed in a small cavity that can still be seen under Chen Jinggu's seat at her temple. The goddess and the demon were thus indissolubly joined in the cultic image. The snake is under the seat. The defiant aspect of her nature, despite becoming wife and mother, is symbolized in the establishment of her temple, the Linshui Palace at Gutian, on the site of the white snake's grotto, where previously the demon had demanded an annual offering of 2 children. This special doubling of the goddess with the white snake and the veiled absorption of a cult of child sacrifice into one of child protection shows how Chen Jinggu's story follows a pattern discussed by Victor Cass of rebellious women, mystics, and warriors who were marginalized in a society where their only proper position was that of wife and mother, and who could only be incorporated through becoming goddesses. In The Lady of Linshui pacifies demons, as in other celebrated accounts of the white snake, such as the precious scroll of Thunderpeak, translated by Wild Idima, the white snake and her son. The white snake, Madame Bai, is characterized as being devoted to passionate love, even loving the victims whom she ultimately destroys. In pursuing her passions, this femme fatale destroys families, regions, and nearly the state before finally being eliminated. In Chen Jinggu's girl, the demon is symbolically interred beneath the goddess temple. Thus, the savage female sexuality embodied by the demon is ritually mastered by the family and the state in order to incorporate its fertile energies. Erring in the opposite direction, Chen Jinggu sought to devote her life to ritual asceticism and self-refinement, which required refusing the standard female roles. This led to her disaster and to her condemnation by Orthodox society, the laws of which concerning the place of women she had flouted. The story thus dramatizes the tensions in the nature of women in a patrilineal society dominated by men, tensions that could be resolved only in mythic narrative and temple ritual, where social deviance could be mobilized to defend orthodoxy, and the bloody consequences of an abortion gone wrong could generate magic powers in defense of childbirth. Here we can see how, in this indispensable emancipation of the maternal body, it is the feminine that remains most problematic to conceive of or to invent for men and women alike. On the other hand, we can also see during the Ming dynasty, the influence of snake cults had become a serious threat to the expansion of a belief system that began during the Tang dynasty. This is why many of the snake deities that may originally have been revered leaders of the Min snake people, Shodong, have been transformed into demons and demoness in the legend of Chen Jinggu. The Lady of Linshui's pacified demon is also the story of the gathering of a community of women whom Chen Jinggu receives as her sworn sisters during her exorcisms in the kingdom of Ming. These women themselves become masters of ritual magic, which they are taught by Chen Jinggu in her Linshui palace. They are shamans and warriors who link maternity and ritual war under the guise of exorcisms. The most important are Lin Jianyang and Li Sanyang. Along with Chen Jinggu, they form the triad of three ladies, Sanai. The Lady of Linshui pacifies demon describes the relationship of these sworn sisters in detail, as well as the ritual comparable to a marriage rite that joins them. Each of the sworn sisters has a role as a protector of an aspect of maternity or childhood, above all as healers of childhood diseases. For instance, Miss Jiang, disciple of Li Shan Laomu, also called Tigress Jiang because of her tiger nature, protects against smallpox and other eruptive illnesses of childhood, which before the age of 7 expel the poisons of the womb. The 36 consorts of the king of Min become Chen Jinggu disciples, are masters of the time of pregnancy. They can untie children's embryonic knots that embody predestined childhood diseases, thereby helping children get through the passes that mark the dangerous moments in the process of maturation. According to an alchemical reading of Chen Jinggu's story, these consorts correspond to the 36 stars that surround the Big Dipper and that are responsible for activating the cosmic matrix. You can see a ritual of crossing the passes, and the 36 consort as nurturesses or as shamans. Finally, this sect of the three ladies was syncretically forged by grafting borrowings from different branches of Taoism and esoteric Buddhism, that is Tantrism, onto a local shamanic or spirit medium substrate. The Lady of Linshui Pacifies Demons preserves, embedded in its episodes, many rituals of this sect still practiced today. It is also unique among accounts of Chen Jinggu in that its ritual landscape dramatizes both sharing among the diverse ritual traditions of the region and conflicts between them, that is, Zhengyi-pai, Tianxin-Zhengfa, Shanxiao-pai, Maoshan-pai, Lushan-pai, etc. Throughout the text, there is also a slippage and overlapping between Taoism of all traditions and form of Buddhism, as Chen Jinggu, as a drop of Guanyin's blood, is an emanation of the Bodhisattva and thus linked to the diverse Buddhist traditions which invoke the patronage of this figure. Thank you so much, and sorry for my terrible voice, so hard to